When Taylor Swift puts something on sale, a ticket, an album, a limited edition, people don't just buy it. They scramble for it. Demand so intense it has crashed websites and sold out arenas in minutes. But that frenzy isn't an accident. It's the result of understanding one of the most powerful forces in all of money: scarcity, timing, and demand. And once you understand it too, you'll never undersell yourself the same way again. Because the value of anything, your work, your time, your product, isn't fixed. It's set by demand relative to supply. And most people accidentally destroy their own value by getting that equation exactly backwards. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to get it right. Before we go further, this video is for educational purposes only, and it is not personalized financial advice. It's a factual look at a public business story. Figures are as reported and should be verified. Always do your own research and consider speaking with a qualified professional. Now, let's talk about scarcity and demand. Let's start with the most fundamental law in all of economics: supply and demand. The price and value of anything comes down to how much of it is available versus how much people want it. When something is scarce and highly wanted, its value soars. When it's abundant and easily gotten, its value falls. That's it. That's the engine underneath every price you've ever seen. And this isn't a theory, it's the invisible rule governing the value of everything, including you. A skill that's rare and in demand commands a high salary. A skill that's common and easily replaced commands little. The exact same person can be worth wildly different amounts depending purely on how scarce and wanted their particular value is. Supply and demand doesn't just price gold, it prices your labor. Now watch how masterfully Taylor plays this equation. She doesn't just create things people want, she carefully controls the supply of them so that demand always outstrips availability. And when demand outstrips supply, value goes up, and so does the intensity with which people chase it. She engineers scarcity on purpose. Think about a concert tour. There are only so many seats, only so many nights. That supply is naturally limited, but Taylor's demand is enormous. Far, far more people want in than there are seats. And that gap, scarce supply against overwhelming demand, is exactly what turns tickets into something people will fight, wait, and pay a premium for. The scarcity is what makes them precious. And here's the psychological twist that makes scarcity so powerful. We don't just value scarce things more rationally. We desire them more emotionally. The harder something is to get, the more we want it. Scarcity doesn't only raise price, it raises desire. Taylor understands that deeply. So consider how she releases things. Limited edition vinyl. Special versions available only for a short window. Surprise drops that create a sudden, time-limited frenzy. Exclusive merchandise. Each of these deliberately limits supply or availability, creating a sense of get it now or miss it forever. And that urgency converts casual interest into intense, immediate demand. This taps a well-documented quirk of human psychology: scarcity increases perceived value. Studies in behavioral economics show that people rate the very same item as more valuable and more desirable when it's presented as limited or running out. It's not the item that changed, it's the scarcity around it. Taylor turns that principle into a release strategy. So while most sellers think make it as available and easy to buy as possible, the sophisticated player thinks make it feel scarce and worth chasing. Constant, unlimited availability quietly signals this isn't special. Controlled scarcity signals this is precious, act now. Same product, completely different perceived value. And this connects to timing, the second pillar. Taylor is a master of when she releases things, building anticipation for months, dropping hints, choosing the perfect moment. By the time something arrives, the demand has been carefully wound up like a spring. She doesn't just release into existing demand, she manufactures the demand first, then releases into it. Sometimes she does the opposite of a long build, a total surprise. A release that appears out of nowhere, creating instant, concentrated excitement precisely because no one saw it coming. Either way, the timing is deliberate, and it manufactures a wave of demand. Both strategies work spectacularly. Her surprise releases have generated enormous, immediate sales and streaming, precisely because the unexpected drop concentrated a huge amount of demand into a single moment. And her long anticipation builds have turned release days into cultural events. In both cases, the timing is doing real economic work, shaping when and how intensely people want to buy. And this is a lesson far beyond music. When and how you offer something shapes how much people want it. Release everything constantly with no build and no scarcity, and you flatten demand into indifference. Time it, build anticipation, create a moment, and you concentrate demand into something powerful. Now, before this sounds manipulative, let me be clear about the honest version, because that's what actually matters for you. Underneath all the scarcity and timing, there has to be something genuinely worth wanting. Taylor's scarcity works because the product is excellent and the demand is real. Scarcity around something worthless just fails. So the foundation is always real value. Scarcity and timing only amplify demand that genuine quality created, never the other way around. So the formula is, create something genuinely valuable, then manage its supply and timing to reflect that value properly. The value comes first. The scarcity and timing simply make sure you're not accidentally giving that value away for far less than it's worth. And giving value away too cheaply is exactly the mistake most people make with themselves. They oversupply. They're always available, always saying yes, always offering their time and skills at the lowest price, thinking that maximizes their success. But by flooding their own supply, they quietly signal that their value is low, and they train everyone to expect it cheap. Think about it through the supply and demand lens. If you make yourself endlessly available and cheap, you've maximized your supply and minimized your scarcity, which by the basic law drives your perceived value down. The person who is selective, whose time is clearly limited and in demand, is valued far more highly for the exact same skill. Availability and value are often inversely related. This shows up everywhere in the world of work. The consultant who is booked out and hard to get commands far higher fees than the equally skilled one who's always available and eager. Research on pricing and perception consistently finds that limited availability and higher price can actually increase perceived quality and demand, while being too cheap and too available can signal the opposite. Scarcity is a value signal. So one of the most counterintuitive money lessons there is, making yourself a little scarcer and pricing yourself a little higher can make you more wanted, not less. Cheap and endless is not the path to being valued. Let me make this concrete and practical for your working life because it's genuinely powerful. If you're a freelancer or run a small business, being always available and cheapest often works against you. It caps your value and attracts price shoppers. Raising your prices, being more selective about the work you take, and positioning yourself as in demand can, counterintuitively, bring you better clients who value you more. You're managing your own supply and demand exactly like Taylor manages hers. Because the goal was never to sell the most units at the lowest price. It was to be valued properly, and sometimes that means less availability and a higher price, not more and cheaper. Even as an employee, this applies. A worker whose skills are rare and in demand, who has invested in becoming genuinely hard to replace, has real leverage and commands more, because their particular supply is scarce relative to how much employers want it. So one of the smartest career moves is to make your skill set scarcer and more wanted, by getting excellent at something valuable that few people can do. You're increasing your own demand and decreasing your substitutability. And that ties right back to last episode, invest in yourself, especially in rare, high-demand skills. Because the rarer and more wanted your abilities, the more the supply and demand equation tilts in your favor and the more you can command. Common skills are abundant supply, low value. Rare, valuable skills are scarce supply, meeting high demand, high value. Choose what you get great at with that in mind. So the question isn't just am I good? It's am I good at something that's both wanted and rare? That combination, high demand, low supply, is where real earning power lives. The clearest proof of Taylor's demand and scarcity mastery came when tickets for a major tour went on sale, and the demand so massively overwhelmed the available supply that the ticketing systems buckled under the crush. Millions wanted in for a finite number of seats. That gap, demand vastly exceeding scarce supply, is the very thing that makes something priceless. And notice, that overwhelming demand didn't appear from nowhere. It was the result of everything we've covered across this series. Years of owning and building her work, scaling it into a business, diversifying, betting on herself, and building a brand people were devoted to, all of that created enormous underlying demand. Then scarcity and timing concentrated that demand into a frenzy. Scarcity is the amplifier, the genuine value and demand are the source. You need both, so don't mistake the lesson. You can't fake demand with scarcity alone. But when you've built something genuinely wanted, managing its scarcity and timing is how you capture the full value of it, instead of leaving that value on the table. And leaving value on the table is what overavailability and underpricing quietly do. They take something genuinely valuable and sell it for less than the market would happily pay, the exact opposite of what Taylor does. Let's ground it in an ordinary example. Imagine two equally talented photographers. The first shoots anyone, anytime, for the lowest price, always available, always discounting. The second is more selective, books out in advance, prices confidently, and releases limited sessions that fill quickly. Same skill, But the second photographer is perceived as more valuable, attracts clients who respect their work, earns more per job, and burns out less. They didn't get more talented. They managed their supply, demand, and pricing like Taylor manages hers, at an ordinary scale. And notice the second photographer probably works less while earning more, because higher value per unit means you don't have to sell endless cheap units to get by. That's the quiet freedom of pricing power. It lets you earn more without simply grinding out more volume. Scarcity, used honestly, buys back your time as well as raising your income, because the person with pricing power isn't trapped on a treadmill of more units, lower price. They can earn well from fewer, better valued transactions. That's a fundamentally different and freer way to work. Now let's talk about the third pillar, building anticipation or manufacturing demand before you sell. Taylor is legendary for this. Hints, teases, clues dropped for fans to decode. A slow build that has people desperate for the release before it even exists. She doesn't wait for demand to show up. She creates it deliberately ahead of time, so that when she finally offers the thing, the demand is already at a peak. And this works because anticipation is itself pleasurable and demand-building. Research on marketing and psychology shows that a well-built sense of anticipation increases desire and willingness to buy. People who have been looking forward to something for weeks want it far more intensely than people who just stumbled across it. The build-up isn't filler, it's the demand engine. So the ordinary version, don't just quietly release your work and hope people notice. Build a little anticipation. Tell people it's coming. Give a taste. Create a sense of a moment. Whether you're launching a product, a service, a piece of content, or even applying for a role, generating some anticipation and demand before the offer lands makes that offer far more powerful than dropping it cold into an indifferent world. And here's the pricing power payoff of all this. When demand is high and supply is controlled, you gain the ability to charge what your work is truly worth, and even a premium, without losing your buyers. That pricing power is one of the most valuable things any earner or business can possess. It's the difference between competing on being cheapest, which is a race to the bottom, and competing on being wanted, which is a path to genuine, durable value. Because competing on price alone is a trap. There's always someone willing to go cheaper, and you slowly erode your own value chasing the bottom. Competing on demand, being genuinely wanted, and managing your scarcity and timing so people feel that, is how you escape the price war entirely. Taylor never competes on being the cheapest. She competes on being the most wanted. So the goal for your own work is to move, over time, from price competition toward demand competition. From I'm the cheapest option toward I'm the one people specifically want. That shift, built on genuine value, then reinforced by smart scarcity, timing, and positioning, is how you gain control over what you can command, instead of being at the mercy of whoever will undercut you next. Because the person competing on price is always vulnerable. The person people genuinely want is far harder to replace and far freer to name their worth. Now, a crucial word of honesty and balance. This only works ethically and sustainably when the underlying value is real and the scarcity is genuine. Fake scarcity, or hype around something empty, works once and then destroys trust. Taylor's scarcity is credible because her quality is real and consistent. Build the real thing first. Only then does managing its scarcity become powerful rather than deceptive. So this is never about tricking people. It's about not undervaluing something that's genuinely good, about letting real quality command the demand and the price it actually deserves. And there's a real danger on the other side, too, oversupplying and diluting your own value. Flood the market with too much of yourself, too cheaply, too constantly, and you can quietly erode the very demand you built. Even scarcity has to be managed with care. That's why the truly skilled players are deliberate about how much they release and how often. They understand that being slightly harder to get can make them more wanted, and that flooding their own supply can cheapen everything. It's a balance, enough availability to serve real demand, enough scarcity to protect real value. Master that balance and you control your own worth. So the whole lesson comes down to this. Understand that your value is set by supply and demand, build something genuinely worth wanting, and then don't carelessly give it away by oversupplying and underpricing. Manage your scarcity, time your offers, build anticipation, and let genuine demand, not desperation, set your price. And that mindset shift alone, from how do I make myself as cheap and available as possible to how do I make what I offer genuinely wanted and value it properly, can transform how much you earn from the exact same skill. It's the difference between being a price taker and having pricing power. And pricing power, once you have it, is one of the most durable advantages in all of business and work. Companies and individuals with strong pricing power, the ability to charge more because they're genuinely wanted, tend to be far more profitable and resilient than those forced to compete on being cheapest. Being wanted is worth more than being cheap, over any meaningful stretch of time. Every sold-out show, every instantly gone limited edition, every release day frenzy is the same lesson repeating. Genuine value, made scarce and well-timed, becomes something people will move mountains to get. That's demand, engineered honestly at its most powerful. So let's recap the lesson. Value is set by supply and demand. Scarcity increases both perceived value and desire. Timing and anticipation manufacture demand before you sell. Oversupplying and underpricing yourself quietly destroys value, while being selective, well-timed, and confident about your worth builds pricing power. Build something genuinely great first, then manage its scarcity and timing so you capture its true value instead of giving it away. And feel how directly this applies to you. You don't need millions of fans to raise your prices thoughtfully, to be more selective about your work, to build a little anticipation before you launch, or to invest in becoming rare and in demand. These are ordinary moves, and each one shifts the supply and demand equation a little more in your favor. Do enough of them, and you stop being a price taker at the mercy of the cheapest competitor and start having genuine say over what you're worth. Because the people who command premium value almost never got there by being the cheapest and most available. They got there by being genuinely wanted, and by having the wisdom not to give that away for less than it's worth. Taylor is the billion-dollar version. The principle scales all the way down to you. So stop trying to win by being cheap and endlessly available. Start winning by being genuinely wanted and by valuing yourself accordingly. And this completes the whole series toolkit. Own what you create, scale it into a business, diversify into many streams, bet on yourself, and understand your value through supply, demand, scarcity, and timing so you never sell it too cheaply. 5 principles drawn from one artist's story that together form a genuine map from ordinary earning toward real, durable wealth. So across these 5 episodes, you've been handed one of the most complete, practical wealth blueprints there is, not from a textbook, but from watching how one of the sharpest business minds in modern culture actually operates. And the long-term power of understanding demand is enormous on any scale. 2 people can offer the same quality of work, but the one who understands supply, demand, scarcity, and timing prices themselves properly, avoids the race to the bottom, and builds real pricing power, while the other undercharges, oversupplies, and competes only on being cheap. Over a career, that difference compounds into vastly different earnings and freedom from the very same underlying skill. Understanding demand isn't a trick. It's a permanent advantage. So Taylor's real genius, underneath all the scarcity and timing, is a deep understanding that value is not something the world simply hands you. It's something you shape by managing supply, demand, and perception around genuinely great work. And that understanding begins the moment you stop thinking of your price as fixed by others and start seeing it as something you influence. Through the quality you build, the scarcity you manage, the timing you choose, and the confidence with which you value yourself. That shift at any scale changes what you're able to earn for the rest of your life. Because your value was never a fixed number stamped on you by the world. It was always something you could shape if you understood the forces that actually set it. So let's bring it together. Taylor Swift makes people want what she sells by mastering the oldest law in economics, supply and demand. She builds genuinely great work, then manages its scarcity, times its release, and builds anticipation, so demand always outstrips supply and value soars. The lesson for you isn't the scale. It's the principle your value is set by demand relative to supply. So build something truly worth wanting, don't give it away too cheaply or too freely, and manage your scarcity, timing, and pricing so the world values you as much as you're actually worth. None of this required fame or a stadium or millions of fans. It required understanding one thing most people never learn. That value is set by supply and demand, and you have real power over both. So build genuine value first. Then stop underpricing and oversupplying yourself. Be a little more selective. Time your offers. Build some anticipation. Invest in becoming rare and in demand. Do that and you shift from being a price taker at the mercy of whoever undercuts you to someone with real pricing power over their own worth, the same force that, at the largest scale imaginable, sells out stadiums in minutes. That's the difference between being cheap and available and being genuinely wanted. And it was never about tricks. It was about understanding what truly sets your value. That completes the first 5 money lessons from Taylor Swift's story. Own what you create, build a business, Diversify your income, bet on yourself, and master supply and demand. 5 principles that together are a genuine blueprint for turning a skill into lasting wealth at any scale. If this series changed how you think about your own value, do 3 quick things. Give this video a like so more people find it. Share it with someone who keeps underselling themselves. They need this. And subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the series and our other money stories of the famous. It genuinely means the world, and it helps us keep making these for you. So here's your one action. Look at how you currently offer your most valuable skill and find one way to value it a little more like Taylor would. Raise a price. Be more selective. Build a little anticipation before your next launch. One small move toward being wanted instead of just being cheap. Because your value was always yours to shape.